Good. I feel like saying, well, that's it, and walk out.
Too hot out there?
Well, no, I wasn't going to walk outside. Just out in this room. Maybe one day.
No, silence is golden.
Yeah, silence is all there is, really. The noise is all up here. I mean, you know, you go for a hike out in nature, and that's what starts to fill you, is that silence. It's all around you. You start becoming aware of it. It's one of the reasons people enjoy that, being out in nature. Our minds are constantly thinking about this, thinking about that. And minds are big on evaluating or judging. They don't just think about things. They analyze them and figure out if they're a good thing or a bad thing. Then when you're hooked on something being good or bad, other thoughts come about it, other judgments. And then you start feeling emotions based on those judgments.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Maybe.
Maybe.
That's a good description of the current political environment,
Yeah. All of it. All of it.
in a nutshell.
Yeah. All of it. Yeah. Everyone thinks they're right. And in contrast, they think others are wrong. On both sides, it's the same. It's the same. It's just, you know, thoughts are just thoughts. Really, you don't know where they came from. It just comes to you. And then you embellish it and you claim that it's your thought. I did this. And then when you feel that you've done something, there's consequences. Because you judge what you've done. You judge it as good and pride arises. You judge it as bad and guilt arises. And now you're in that spiral where everything's about what you think and feel and what you've done, and it's all about you. God is on the sidelines for now. Let's talk about me.
That's kind of the problem right now, that we've always had differences of opinion, but anymore it's personal somehow. It's very, very personal on both sides.
And righteous.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that they're right. You know, the terrorists know that they're right.
Mm-hmm.
They're willing to die for their cause. Everybody thinks they're right. And the people who are against him, who disagree with him, they think they're wrong. And it's just amplified right now. It's always there.
It's not just right and wrong, though. It's you mentioned it earlier, judgment. It's good and bad.
Yeah, no, right and wrong, good and bad.
You disagree with me, so you're bad. Not just with a difference of opinion, but my evaluation of you is lower.
Yeah. You see, people take their thoughts way too seriously. Keep things in perspective. You have a thought today. What does that thought mean in 10 years? Not much. The thoughts that you had 10 years ago, most of them are irrelevant to you right now. What will they mean in 100 years? Absolutely nothing. What makes them so important now? What makes your thoughts and feelings so important now? How is it that you've lost your perspective? All of us came from the same place. All of us are going to the same place. Therefore, in essence, all of us are the same. Our nature, our truest nature, is eternal. We have taken the temporary and put it right front and center. We've taken all these things that have very little shelf life and very little long-term meaning, or no long-term meaning, and we've given them full meaning for the moments in our lives. What is full, what is complete, is now. Just being here now. Just that experience of presence, of being. You can put any word you want to it because it won't be correct, because it's too big for words. But this experience of now is exactly the same now as it was when you were 5 years old. It's exactly the same. It never changes. It is eternal. We've put that aside and given all of our attention into the me world, into what I think, what I feel, what I did. And all of these things that you think, feel, say, and do have no lasting impact. You have to think, well, what is it going to mean in 100 years? Does anyone give a shit about anything that any dinosaur ever thought? No. We don't know what people thought 2,000 years ago. We're just guessing. But I'll bet they thought a lot of stuff that was pretty far out to us, and to them that was real and important. All of them had lives, all of them had thoughts, all of them had feelings, and all of them did things in their lives. It's just history now. At best, it's a memory, and more likely, it's not even a memory anymore. There's very few people that we remember from 2,000 years ago. There's a few messiahs and stuff. They get remembered, and how accurately? Who knows? We're through a lot of filters to get here. So you want to keep your perspective, and it's very easy to find. Nothing could be simpler than simply resting in this moment, just being in this moment. Nothing could be simpler than that. And right here, in this very moment, and in all moments, everything is present. Your personal awareness of it comes and goes, but it's always here. That sense of being. And you see, it's just peace. That's all. It's just peace. The mind is not a peaceful place. Thoughts and feelings come and go all the time. And they're always changing. What you feel today is probably not what you're going to feel tomorrow. And even if it is, it won't be what you feel next year. What you think today will change moment to moment. Everything is in constant movement. But the stillness of now is always here. And it's where you put your attention. So people are all the time putting their attention on their thoughts and their feelings and their actions. God is everywhere. God is everything. Anybody thinking about God? How often? How rarely? You see? So it's just a matter of what are you worshiping? God or yourself? You want to ask yourself, in your daily, where are you putting all of your attention? And why would you put all your attention on yourself? I mean, you think of it. You think of all the people in China and India, and they're all thinking about themselves all the time. And they're like the number one thing that they think about. And you don't even know who they are. They're not that important. You know they're not that important. But they're so important to themselves that it's all they think about. See? Everyone's just thinking about themselves and living out some kind of drama as if it was the whole thing. You know, you watch the TV and you see your favorite series and you want to know what's going to happen next, and it's interesting, but it's just a TV show. It's not your life. I mean, really, they would have to put you away somewhere if you thought what was on the TV was the whole world. But you got this little TV set going on in your head about your life and this little drama and all these things going on, and you're thinking, this is it. But it's a short-term thing, this life. It can't last longer than a lifetime. And lifetimes come and go all the time. One's being born, one's dying. It just comes and goes and comes and goes for thousands and thousands of years. But what doesn't come and go can be found right here, right now, this moment, always the same. So, the key is to let the mind have the amount of attention that it needs. You know, you still need to listen to the mind when it reports to you that you're hungry, or you need to go to the bathroom, or you need to get to work at a certain time, whatever it is. Perfectly functioning mind. But it doesn't deserve all of your attention, all of the time. People who give the mind too much attention can't sleep at night. So, I can tell you for a fact that the mind needs much less attention than you might suppose. In this case, it doesn't have very much, just enough. And the frivolous thoughts that arise in the mind, you see, a frivolous thought comes, I wonder what Gene thought about that. Well, why did it? And it goes on, you know, the mind's just, and then you're feeding it with more thoughts. That doesn't go on. The thought might arise, I wonder what Jane, no one plays. No one plays with it, you see, because no one cares. So it just comes and it goes, comes and it goes. Most thoughts. Now, then the thought arises, it's just a matter of taking care of daily business. And of course you take care of that thought. You take, oh yeah, I have to pay the bills. Okay. So what I'm prescribing is a way to bring peace into your life, and letting the mind have all of the attention is not conducive to a peaceful life. And people manage it in different ways. Some people are very good at managing, being self-identified, and they're successful. And others are very, very poor at it, and they're on the street talking to themselves. But it's all the same thing. And in fact, if you look in people's eyes, you can see there's a level of suffering, even in people that appear not to be. Because can you imagine what could be more painful than thinking that you are separate from God? And when you are identifying yourself with your thoughts and your feelings and your actions, you are identifying yourself with something separate from God. Unless you're doing it in a very enlightened way. Thinking your thoughts, feelings, and actions were God. It's tricky.
Is there a variation on the identification with self, do you think, culturally? Because you've given the example of India and China, and I think of them as not as individualized countries, more thinking about the family and the generation.
But there's still,
it's the same. It's the same.
It's just a different variation of, So in some regard, there's degrees.
Right.
You see, so what we said in the village in India, people are much happier than in America,
Right.
as a generality.
Right.
Even though they have nothing, the wealthy person in the village has a light bulb, but they're happier. They really live in much more peace and acceptance. They don't have as many distractions. Now the distractions run very deep, deeper than when I was young, because of the phones and the computers and the
Westernization.
Yeah, well, it's just much more, the distraction is very deep. And, when we were kids, there were 3 channels on the TV. Maybe 4 if you count PBS. That's it. Now there's hundreds. You can get lost in all kinds of things. It's very, you see, so the tendency is to lean more toward that. Whereas, someone in the village, they don't have many distractions, except for the hunger.
Or the dysentery.
Yeah. No, they don't suffer with that. Only the Westerners come.
Only we do that, yeah.
If they were going to have dysentery, they've already died.
Yeah. That's true, yeah.
Yeah, they don't suffer with that.
Don't you think it's almost another thing is in the West, there's so much more of an illusion of control Like we can control the AC and control the heat, you know, whereas when we're in India,
Oh, yeah, they have
no
much
AC.
more. Yeah, yeah. But they have much more of a, I don't know what the words are. They're not English. What's the word in French?
Swaha.
What will be, you know, it's just.
Yeah.
Huh?
It's
C'est la vie.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, yeah. So it's like.
Sarah.
Yeah. But is it more of a cultural surrender too? Because you have to, and you don't even get to choose who you. Well, you might now, but who you marry. You know, this is your mate, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, you know, in some ways, that's freeing too. You don't have to concern yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so much here, you know, you have to decide who you're going to marry and when you're going to marry and what it's going to look like and blah, blah, blah. And it's like there, it's very simple, you know. Well, let's see, you're 18 now, you have to get married. And I know to whom. You know, Ramesh, Pastor Ramesh, you know, his wife Sharda, they were childhood friends. And everybody knew in both families that they would be married when they were like 5 years old.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, it was just a given. It was just a given. It was merely a formality.
You know, in a way, that's kind of lucky.
Well, yeah, they didn't have to go through that whole thing. The whole thing of dating and this and that.
And they lucked out that they love each other.
And they didn't divorce either. Yeah, they do. they were a unit. So, you know, it's a simpler life. Our lives are not as simple here. But they're more comfortable. They're more comfortable and we live longer. Oh, we get to suffer longer. Great.
Really? Maybe they're more physically comfortable.
Yes.
I don't know that it's more mentally comfortable.
No,
here.
I never felt that. They are, in India, they're much more laid back.
It's like more surrender.
Yeah.
in a way.
But you, when you see them get pissed off, it's like unbelievable. I mean, I was in Bombay during the riots, and you know, it went from just good old Bombay to, oh my God, Bombay's on fire. And you know, it's like it just changed overnight. Trying to get to the airport in the middle of that, flying over and seeing the city burning.
Third world chaos.
You know, it was something else, yeah. So in any case,
Yeah.
this stuff happens everywhere.
Yeah.
And nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, really my point, is that focusing on me all the time is focusing on something other than God, and focusing on something that is chaotic and is not conducive to peace. And I think that the well-being of people is contingent on that sense of peace. So, how do you find it? And that's as simple as it could be. Stop thinking.
But
Yes.
at this point, my body needs a lot of, I'm involved in self-preservation. From the moment I get up, what pill am I going to take? What time is it? What's the next thing? Now I need to eat. Now I need to go to the bathroom. Now I need to do my shot. Now I need to take the next pill. It's sort of, and this mind puts it on a chart so I don't have to keep it all in here, but I still have to be the driver behind doing all these to keep the body alive.
It's constant maintenance.
Constant.
I understand totally.
It's time to
I-
drink some water.
I watch
time to do some.
my cat, he's like just licking himself, cleaning up, always doing.
So how can I preserve myself and still do with what you're saying in a mindless way? Because my mind is very active in making sure that I do things in a timely manner and don't bump into somebody and break a bone. You know, there's a vigilance going on to keep this body alive.
So, now, remember the distinction
Mm-hmm.
between the working mind and the thinking mind.
Yes.
So there's a part of your mind. The mind is here to help sustain the body.
Mm-hmm.
That's really its job. The mind tells you what's safe, what isn't safe. The mind tells you what you need to do to keep things rolling so you can pay the rent. And continue, you see. So that's the working mind. That's not a burden. That's just a fact of being in a body on this earth. So that can go on pretty much automatically. You don't have to put too much energy into it. So just continue and let the body do its thing and watch and do whatever's necessary in that regard. But then, when the thought arises, oh, this is a pain in the ass, I hate this, why do I have to keep doing this? That's the kind of stuff. That's the thinking mind. And that should just come and go. There should be no stickiness to it, no residue, nothing that keeps it with you. Okay, so it just comes and it goes. And then your thought about so-and-so and what an asshole she is, and this one and that one and that, blah, 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 blah. Just come and go, come and go. That part can ease off. And you'd be amazed how much of this stuff is already in automatic. You know, when I'm driving my car, I'm not really thinking about it very much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just automatic. And it works out pretty good. I haven't had many telephone poles, I'm all right. You see, so it's like it just, you can do this with really minimal participation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've gone to the bathroom so many times that I'll bet you can do it with your eyes closed. You know, you don't need to be that involved. So it's kind of automatic, natural to do. You've kept this body going for a long time, longer than expected. So you're good at it. And I don't think it's because it requires so much energy. It requires what it requires.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in your case, a little more than some other case, you see. But that's all right. So that part is all right. And that can still be diminished. It doesn't have to all be here, you see. If you can allow those personal, functional thoughts to be over here, they're fine. Even if they're here for a moment, because there's something really requires a heavy level of concentration, that's all right. So just see if you can have that sense of presence, being, that thing that you feel when everything's quiet in your mind. See if you can keep that here and allow the functioning of the mind, which is appropriate. You need a mind to keep a body functioning correctly, you see. When a baby is first born, it can't take care of itself. And its mind isn't functioning in that way, and the body isn't functioning in that way yet. So, can we help till the body and the mind are up to speed? So there's no contradiction and no problem. I mean, I still eat my food. I even make my food. I still do all the functioning. I'm on the computer all the time with my work. I'm doing fine. But it's never like what's here is just nothing, stillness. And that is priority, and this other stuff is secondary at best. It's there because it needs to be there. But it's not here. That's the only difference, you see, between you and I, is that your thoughts, feelings, and actions are here. You see, when they're here, you can't see the forest for the trees. And you can't find that stillness and that peace I'm talking about. Because here is constant movement, chaos, and change. So then you have to work hard to see above all that churning. You see? If you make a commitment to this, to knowing that stillness, you see, people meditate. They meditate for a certain amount of time every day to remind themselves. People chant. They go to chants because that's how they experience that sense of oneness, you see, and beyond themselves. You can do all kinds of things in life that help you connect. When you know what that connection is, you make the commitment to make that the priority and let everything else be secondary. That's all.
We were talking about Ramesh and Sharda being together from an early age. Wasn't Shree married to another enlightened
No,
being, or no?
no, Shree's parents were.
Oh, Shree's parents were, okay.
Yeah.
But was Shree with someone?
Oh yeah, he
Was that arranged at a young age?
was.
Oh.
I think it was.
Oh, okay.
It was the tradition of his lineage that they were householders. I heard he wasn't very much interested in it, but it was the tradition, so I knew. And after he died, his wife said, well, I've been everywhere with him. You know, when he went, I've always been with him. So she stopped eating and drinking water and died in a week.
A week after he died?
Yeah. So I think they were bonded pretty
Yeah.
solid. So. No, but Shree's father was a guru, and his mother was considered a saint. And after Shree was born, they knew that he was an enlightened being at birth. And Paramahamsa Guru or something, some high holy name they gave. And she says, I've given birth to the Paramahamsa Guru, and she said, my work here is done. She left. It was a different world.
Yeah.
So who raised him?
Oh, other people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
But he was a different kind of being anyway.
The English translator?
No, there was no English translator. There was no one who spoke English there. In the little town of Akkalkot. So there was this big celebration And I was in this thing, we were all going to Akkalkot. There was hundreds of people, I don't remember what it was. And this man was talking to me from the village. And what? And he kept talking, English, no one really was strong in English out there. They were really in the boonies. And my Marathi wasn't good at all. And anyhow, I was barely making out what he said. And finally I got it. He said he was the English teacher in the town. And I thought to myself, well, these students, they don't know English at all.
Will you explain who Shree is for?
Shree is this one. Shree Gajanan Maharaj. Truly just an Indian guru, not westernized at all. And Westerners like myself knew about him because one of his students came to America. And he was a guru in America. And he came to Baltimore where I lived. And my buddy Tommy took me to see him when we were in junior high school. And that was my first exposure to that. But his picture was there because that was his guru, this guru's guru, and I always was attracted to him. I always said, if I ever had a chance, I'd love to visit him. Well, I was in India all the time in those days, and I had a chance. So I just found out the town where he lived, and I went out there. And they had some Westerners that would come because he taught this. Shree brought this fire ritual from the Vedas, this was like 6,000 years ago. And it's a little fire ritual called Agnihotra, done at sunrise and sunset. It's to bring that stillness of the mind and to clean the atmosphere. It's supposed to be very good for you. And I was familiar with all this because my best friends from elementary school had grown up and been in this thing. And so it was fine to be there, but it was different because nobody spoke English at all. And, it's just like you get off the train in Akkalkot, and it's 20 miles from the town of Akkalkot. And, I don't know what to do. But I saw Shree's picture in the train station where the train master, where the master of the station was. And it didn't matter because people saw I had white skin. They knew there's only one possible reason I could be there. And so everyone was pointing and blah, 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 blah. And they had me sit down and a bus came and blah, 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 blah. It's really just dirt farmers with chickens all over the bus. And then the bus stops and everyone's rah, rah, rah. So
his ashram wasn't actually in Akkalkot, it was 20 miles outside of it?
No. It was maybe a mile outside.
Oh, okay.
But you had to take a bus from the train to get there.
Oh, to Akkalkot.
Yeah. And so they dropped me off, and there it was, and I was welcomed like a long-lost traveler. It was sweet. It was very sweet, and Shree was very, very sweet. It was a real treat, and no one spoke English, really. Some of the people preparing the meals spoke enough English to figure out what I could eat. Cornflakes, they got me cornflakes. You could get cornflakes there. You could get very little there. I went to the market, and this is the middle of nowhere. It's just potatoes and onions and lemons and bananas. And they had carrots that if you held them out straight, they would bend. I'll pass on those. And your food had to be super cooked to get everything out of it. But in any case, it was fun. And it was quiet. It was so quiet. So you see, I used to spend my time with, at that point, Baba had died, and I spent my time with Ramesh. And Ramesh was doing what I'm doing here, talking and talking and talking. And it was like so much talking. And it's like my brain was full. There was nothing else I could put in there. Concept after concept after concept. It's like I needed that quiet just to be able to absorb what had already been put in there, just to be in that stillness. So Shree gave me that wonderful gift of being in a space where no demands were put on me whatsoever. They treated me like I knew why I was there, and whatever I did was fine. And it was just quiet. And all I would do is go to town to Akkalkot. I would walk there and take darshan with Shree. And that was it. I didn't have to do anything else. So it was just quiet time. So it was really perfect. Perfect little thing to make it so that I could absorb some of what had been given. So that's how all three of these kind of work together.
Was his darshan, did he speak and then the Indians, or was it just the fire ceremony?
Oh no, not even that. He would just sit in a wooden stool, in a wooden footstool, and hold his hand up, and he would come and bow down to his feet. He didn't really he gave like one talk a year. And I read a translation of one of them, and it didn't make any sense to me at all. So it wasn't about that.
So it's just really an energy transmission.
That's all it was, yeah, and that's why I was there. And his energy was keeping everything in that realm, because he was enlightened from birth. It's very rare, So he had an abundance of, you could feel it around him. That man lived in peace. All three of these guys lived in peace. But Shree wore it on his sleeve. It just exuded out of him. That's all that it was. My friend described it really good. See, he's just a bundle of love. And she said, during darshan, he greets you as if he had waited his entire life for that moment. That's the thing, when you're in the now, when you're totally in the presence of being, everything is new. Everything is new. So it gives all of life a different quality. And all the events of life a different quality. And my little stories about Shree. There's more, but they come when they come. It's hard to sum up 20 years of seeking in a few minutes.
What caused you to go on that, to seek in the first place?
It was an inner thing. It was something I was born with, apparently. Some people may go after money. Some people go after relationships. Some people go after power. Some people go after making furniture, whatever it is. in life that makes them feel fulfilled. We're all born seeking, the baby seeking its mother's breast right from the beginning. It's a human nature. In my case, nothing was working. I knew it wasn't about money. I knew it wasn't about fame or power or any of those things or sex. I just knew it wasn't. I knew for sure. Like I knew it sometimes before I'd even experienced any of it. I knew that wasn't it. But then, I was always trying to figure out, like, who am I? I wanted to know, because all these people were talking about all this stuff, like it was knowledge, and I just thought, well, if you don't know who you are, what do you know? What difference does it make what you know? If you don't know who you are, that was like priority. So I was drawn, because I was on that mission, first kind of through psychology. I had heard this guru, and I heard all kinds of inaccurate information about him, but it was enough to attract me to want to see him. And that was Baba. And when I met Baba, it was very simple, you see. I knew that everything I was taught about God, it wasn't correct. And I'd become an atheist, and this is like in my adolescence. And because I knew it couldn't be right. Everyone's concept, it was like, well, what about the person on Zaltor who never heard of what you're talking about and believes in marshmallows? I don't know. It's like, this doesn't make sense to me, that there's like what they're saying. It just didn't make sense. Couldn't be correct. I knew it couldn't be correct. And I became an atheist at summer camp. Went to a Jewish summer camp. And they had this thing at the end in the newsletter where they voted for different people to get certain things. They voted for me to get a Bible.
To get a what?
A Bible. But I looked up in the stars, and I could see, this is infinity. The furthest star I can see, if I went out there, there'd be another furthest star I could see, and if I went out there, and it just goes on forever. And I knew nothing that I had been taught related to this infinity that I saw all around me. And so I'm sitting with Baba, and Baba says, God dwells within you as you. And it was the first thing I ever heard about God that made sense to me. So that got my attention. And it helped resolve this thing, being an atheist and then an agnostic, when I found out what that meant. And now all of a sudden, well, that's a God I can believe in. And so I was intrigued, and my attention went on Baba, and Baba started getting like full attention, like how it is if you fall in love, and all you're thinking about is your lover all the time. When you're apart, it doesn't matter. You're just thinking about him all the time. So it was like that, without the sex. And so anyhow, he grew on me, and pretty soon, in a matter of some time and some visits, my whole life's intention was to know the peace that I could see Baba had. I wanted it. And so I followed him around. And I was lucky enough to be taken on staff to be with him. So that was nice. That was, and then, so that's always been since then, the main thing. Which is why I don't own a house today. There's some downsides.
And you forgot to get your yacht.
I forgot to save up. Instead, I would make money and, I can go to India now. Oh, it wasn't my priority. So.
Well, peace became your social security.
Yeah. I have that. It's not enough to bring me peace. Yeah. So anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about you.
I have a question.
Good.
I tend to read Robert Adams a lot. Somehow it just resonates with me and it helps me. So the last couple of weeks, it seems like every time, all I do is I just open up the book. I don't go in order, I just open it up. It seems like the whole last week and a half, every single time I've opened the book, there's, in the sats, I just do one satsang a day. There's a story about him talking about the spiritual center that's supposed to be on the right side of your chest. And I'm thinking, I never really paid much attention to that.
Mm.
But you know how there's that story about Ramana when his mom was dying? I don't know, he did something. He put his hand on his head and the other on the spiritual center. And there's, what is that really?
I don't know. I'm actually not familiar with it.
Well, I never paid much attention to it, but he talks about it like that's where when the eye finally drops by some grace of God,
Mm-hmm.
that it sinks into the spiritual heart.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
It's not something I'm familiar with.
it's Greek to me, really.
Yeah, well, but you resonate with it?
Well, because it kept appearing,
So
it got me curious. Like, what is this?
yeah, you have to find out. You have to find out since you have a
I think the Sufis talk about this, the emotional heart.
Oh,
A
really?
different component of the heart. I'm not sure where they got it from.
What do they call it? Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll Google it.
Sorry. Not everything's my area.
You know what to do.
Yeah. You'll have to explore it since you have some resonance with it. It keeps coming to you. It may
It
mean
just kept
something.
coming up and up, over and over.
Well, let me know when you find out.
So when I'm not completely involved in myself, I feel a little better. I want to help others. So I jump into that mode where I'm going to be a teacher or a good friend or be of service. is that just another way to keep my mind totally involved? Or is that a nature that I could have? Because I like teaching, and when I did, and I like when someone says thank you, or, you know, you've been helpful.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's for you and for everyone to do the things that it is their nature to do. And also, helping others usually can aid in taking you out of yourself, you see. So there was, you know, so that's the kind of thing that if you're too self-absorbed, you're thinking about yourself too often, all the time, you can put that energy into others, and it takes some of the me out of it. Of course, when you think you're doing a really good thing, helping others, that's the me. You see, so it's hard for the me to remove the me. Okay? In fact, it's impossible. It just transforms into maybe a better me, or a preferred me, or a me who's not suffering as much. You see? That's all right. That's all right. Still, you do the things it is your nature to do. And there shouldn't be a need for you not to do things, you see, based upon your concept that the me is doing too much. You see? You're going to do something anyway. So do the things you can. You know, even this is difficult because it's limited. I'm using words to describe something that is beyond words. And you're using your concepts to understand that which cannot possibly be understood. But that's how it starts. Okay? It starts that way because when the mind is in alignment with all of this, it's easier to get the mind to back off a bit. You see? And then you can just rest in this sense of being more often and more deeply. Me always wants to come in though. Plenty of people have had amazing spiritual experiences, awesome experiences, and the mind jumps in and goes, that's it. Look what I got. This is fantastic. You see? Now, as soon as the mind says that's it and tries to claim it, it's gone. Because the mind's activity and this awesome piece of being are not compatible. They're not compatible when the mind's activity draws all the attention. So your attention was just focused on this incredible piece in the moment of being. And then the mind came in and took all of the attention and said, that's it, and tried to claim it. Tried to claim that which was never belonged to it. You see? The mind likes to get in to everything. It likes to be there and own it. You see, so this experience of being, it's everywhere and it's everything, and everyone has it. So it's like, it doesn't belong to you. If you're lucky, you can have the experience of it. But you don't actually get to claim when it happens. There's people who meditate earnestly and don't experience anything. Then they're walking down the street one day and all of a sudden, boom. You know, they get it. But the mind comes in, tries to claim it. That's not an issue. It's the mind's nature. The issue is that you give all your attention to the mind in that exchange, and then you lose your focus on what was bringing you peace. It's not a fair exchange. The mind does not deserve the level of attention we give it. The mind says, you'd be nowhere without me. Maybe. The mind likes to think it's in charge, and it likes...
And important.
And you. The mind has actually said, I am you. My thoughts, my feelings, my actions, that's who you are. And your parents, when you were young, taught you that was true. But it's still bullshit. It can't be true. You're much greater than your thoughts and feelings and actions. You're much greater than that. And your thoughts and feelings and actions are very small. There's billions and billions and billions of people on this planet with thoughts, feelings, and actions. And they're tiny. You can see it in someone else who lives, in Uttar or something in India, just some Adivasi, some little whatever. And you can see, well, what they think and feel, it doesn't matter. But you can't see it in yourself. Because what you think and feel is important. But it's not. And has no shelf life, even for you. So, God dwells within you as you. That matters. That's important. But what it does is it equalizes everything. Because Baba didn't say, God dwells within you as you, and maybe you, and you a little, yeah, okay, some. It's the same for everyone. 100% for everyone. And what that does is, it makes us all the same. These outward differences, determined by sex and age and personality, those things really have no substance. They're things that are just constantly changing. We are the same. The same God that dwells within me is the same God that dwells within you and everybody else. And what is God anyway? God is everything. There's nothing that could be separate from God except for your imagination of yourself. But even you're not separate from God. We all came from God, we're all going to God. We are all God right now. That's the way it is. So, just more and more of your day, be in this sense of oneness with yourself instead of this temporary illusion of separateness, this temporary sense that you are an individual unattached from God. That's all. And then you feel peaceful. I mean, when I was with my gurus, I wanted that because I was not peaceful. And I wanted what they had.
ask you a question? When you say God, what do you mean?
God is the essence of everything. It's, now you see, I was raised to think God was like this thing, this individual almost, you see? But I've come to understand that it's more than that, that individual is the way we see everything. We see ourselves as individuals. God is like this great individual. And that never made sense to me. So when I say God, no, you see, God has a lot of baggage to it for a lot of people.
The word God.
The word, yeah. So Ramesh used to use the word consciousness. And he would say, instead of God dwells within you as you, Ramesh would say, consciousness is all there is. You see? So it's really a word that defies all definition, because words are based in things that have distinction. And that which is everything, that which is eternal and infinite, has no distinction. So it defies words. So none of them are correct. You can also use the word love. You can use the word acceptance. And all of these point in the right direction. So it's a word beyond, it's a word that points to something beyond words and beyond the mind's ability to understand, because the mind really is designed to understand distinctions. You see, that which is everything, that which is all of it, the good and the bad, all of it. It's just beyond that. But there's this sense I have, and I had as a child, as an adolescent, looking up in the stars, of infinity, of like something that just kept going forever and ever, and was everything all in one. And it's that, you see.
That makes sense.
That was the first time I felt that I had experienced God. I decided I was an atheist because it was not the God I was taught. So the God I was taught, I didn't believe it. You see?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
I was raised by people who were not at all religious. And they never said atheist, but they were clearly atheists,
Mhm.
not even agnostic, but atheists. And I can never relate when people talk about God, but what you just described, I can relate to.
Right. And like I said, it's a word that has a lot of baggage, and a lot of people
Yeah.
prefer when I give the talks and say consciousness.
Yeah, I
You know,
prefer that.
Yeah, because so just insert that word.
Or pure
Would-
being.
No, I don't say that, because it has too many implications for the mind. What is pure, you see? That's all. So I'm trying to stay away from that. Even God is less, but it depends on your upbringing.
Yeah.
What God
your
means.
What your image is.
Yeah.
Or
But Baba blew all that out. He was able to say God, and I understood what he meant because he was actually talking about God. Now, the other stuff that I heard about God, they weren't actually talking about any God that I have resonance with. That's all.
Did you say?
So is God, excuse me, is God a being that actually exists in your conception?
Well, God is beyond a being, you see. We think of ourselves as an individual, therefore God is like a super being, a super individual. God is like the essence of everything, okay? It's like the thread that holds everything together. It's beyond an individual being. It's a universal essence.
Or it's something that actually exists?
It is all that exists. Yes. Yes.
You said you think about, we should be thinking about God a lot. Isn't that what you said before?
Yes.
I think I'm listening.
Mhm.
You also said you should be in the moment. How can you be two different things?
They're the same thing. Because God is everything. And in the moment, when the mind is still, all there is that presence of being. That could be another word for God. You see? It's a matter of definitions here. I don't want to get too lost in definitions, but there's just, if God is everything, then it's beyond everything that you can conceive of. And yet, if you're just quiet in your moment, you can have that sense of connection with everything. You can feel it, you see? And then nothing else exists for that moment till the mind comes in and grabs your attention back again.
But do you experience it or do you think about it?
You experience it first, you think about it second. You see? When you think about it, it's no longer what it was. Before you think about it, when you're just in it, it is what it is. The mind is just this limited tool. Its whole function is based on distinguishing things, on seeing the differences in things. And God is everything. The mind cannot see God because there's no distinction. You see, so it's beyond that. But you can experience it. You know it. It's like Ramesh used to call it an intuition that happens before a thought comes. You see? You just know it. And then the mind comes in and tries to interpret all of these different things. But this is beyond the mind's pay grade. It cannot. The mind cannot understand God. But you can certainly experience that connection with everything. It's always here. And occasionally we're lucky enough to fall into that experience. At home? Okay. It is. It's actually impossible to understand. So I'm just wasting my time talking. But you see, this is how it was taught to me. Ramesh talked to me, I think, more than any other human being on earth about spiritual matters. He just talked and talked and talked. And somehow, what got through was beyond those words. And Ramesh himself, he used to say, the teaching is passed in silence. So you see, it was sitting there in that energy. And behind the scenes, right in this room, there's an energy that is telling you everything you need to know before you can know it intellectually. So the concepts are just concepts, and they help align the mind with the process. But they are not the true process, because that's going on. You'll leave here and you'll feel a certain energy. You take that with you. And there's people that have been coming for years, and they leave here and they take that energy with them. And there's something beyond the words. There's some people that come to these talks, they don't understand any of this stuff, but they know what they feel. And you see, and it still gets through.
I think when you were talking about thinking about God rather than thinking about the me, that's like a tool, or that's a way to get your attention, to expand your perception.
It's a technique, because, really, people are like, they're just me, 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 all this, what I'm going to do, what I feel, what I want, what I think, what I do, blah, blah, blah. Just goes on, and that's, most people, that's their God. Me. You see? That's their actual God in practice is me. But there's something more than that. So it's a rough tool. You just take this concept of me and let it diminish, let it be over here. And your concept of God, let it be here. It's not correct, it's just a concept. But what are you going to do? The mind has to work with something. So it's another tool that can help. I know these things help, you see, because I've done them all. I know they help. Ultimately, it's up to grace, and then this feeling comes over you of just being, of just, everything just is. And you're just with everything in this very equanimity, and in this equal way, and there's no more personal in that world. So, I'm still doing stuff, but it's not personal anymore.
And when Ramesh talked, did you say he used consciousness and love interchangeably?
Often he could, yes. Consciousness, love, and God, he used them all.
And they all,
Same as I do.
Do you think they all meant the same thing to
Of
him?
course.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he didn't talk about love so much. That was more Baba's thing. And one time I said to him, Ramesh, you never talk about love. And he goes, what are you talking about? That's all I've ever talked about.
Well, that's interesting. Because it's strange, because I cannot get consciousness, the word, or any of it, the concept of, I can't get that at all. But I do, in my heart of hearts, even when I was a kid, I knew that love was before I was, and love was timeless. I really got love.
Well, you see, now that's true love. You see, the thing, love can be tricky too, because most people, they think of personal love, and they think of the love that has the opposite, hate. You see? And that's not what any of these guys were talking about. They were talking about a love that is greater than its opposite. Beyond opposites. You see, so that can be tricky too. For certain people, that word would be more tricky. Yeah, because all of us have fallen in love and then fallen in hate from that. Love moves on.
So the circumstances that are in your life are God.
Everything is good. Yes.
So the circumstances and the people and the events of your life are some sort of cosmic dance for what purpose? To teach you, or to wake you up, or to raise you up, teach you, learn? What is the point?
Well, maybe to break you.
It's working on the ego?
You see, everything is simply given. Okay? I mean, what can be said? You're thinking of things in terms of their personal impact on you. And all I'm saying is everything is God. Okay? And you're thinking, well, what is the purpose of those things that are happening to me? Okay? And all I'm saying is everything is God, which is beyond purpose. You see? But you're thinking in terms of you, and what does this mean for me? Is this for my betterment? Is this for my involvement? Is this for blah, blah, blah? Make up any story you like. Anything that suits you, that makes you feel at peace with what's happening. Make up any story you like, because everything just happens. You won't feel comfortable with that level of just being with everything, so you need a purpose. You need a reason. So invent one, make up one that works, that makes you feel okay. But it has nothing to do with anything. I mean, everything just is, everything is fine, but while I'm saying that, there are people dying in famines, there are people dying in wars, there is all kinds of horrible things going on in different corners of the earth. And then your mind just goes, whoa, 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 what about that? How could God want something like that? Because you're looking at it through your mind and through your judgments and what you deem as being godlike and not, you see. So everything's just fine, you know. Every single person in this room is going to die one day. How could God allow that? Some of these people are nice.
So it's just God being God. And all you can do really, just observe it and
Just be with what is.
be with it.
Everything just is. It just is. And, you know, there's people right now who are paying good money to see a horror movie in the theater. And they walk out after the movie and they say, "This was great." God forbid it should happen in your life. Then it wouldn't be so great. But from God's point of view, it's all just a movie, right? It's fine. Everything is fine. Some people get to go home earlier than others. So, it's okay, you know, work with it as you can. And make up stories. Please do. I mean, you've imagined yourself to be separate from God for all these years. So use your imagination to imagine something different. You see? That's all. Just retrain yourself. None of it is true. How in the world could you get from a mind to God? You can't. God is in charge. God is everything. I'm going to say consciousness is everything. Love is all there is. You see? Now, I use the word oneness in a lot of talks, because that's really what it is. You see, oneness fills the room. There's just that sense of unicity amongst everything that is. Someone came to Ramesh once, and they had never been to India before, and they were freaked out. And they just, I can't believe this. There are people begging right downstairs, and there's all these children and poor people. And she had never seen anything like it. And she goes, Ramesh, how can God allow this? There's too much poverty. And Ramesh said to her, no, there's just enough.
I truthfully don't understand that,
You don't understand
that
it, yes?
last sentence that you just said.
There's just enough poverty. So from his point of view,
Yeah.
okay, she was freaked out. She had
Right,
never
I
seen this.
understand. Yeah.
From his point of view,
It was enough.
everything is perfect. You see, including that. And so it was more from his point of view, there's just enough. You see? So like someone in this society, what happened to the kids these days? They're just on their phones all the time. They don't actually talk to anyone anymore. You see? My point of view, that's the way it is, isn't it? That's what it is these days. It's just a different level of suffering.
Not quite. Not exactly.
Well, no, it's disguised better. But you know, kids' suicide rates are higher than ever. More kids today claim to feel alone, and like they're always connecting. They're always, you see. So
Not
it's
to humans,
hmm?
just through the machine.
Yeah. So you see, it's just a different level of
Yeah.
of suffering, better disguise. But the results are there to see that it's tough on them. But you know, an asteroid would take care of all of this. All of a sudden, this little box would be useless.
So you were saying from Ramesh's perspective, an enlightened being's perspective, who doesn't feel the separation, who is at peace with everything, that's where he was seeing the poverty and saying it's fine the way it is, because from that enlightened state, everything just is as it is.
Yes.
And there's not any judgment about this is terrible, this is good, you know, it just is.
Yes. Plus, he had seen it his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So, some poor Indian would come to America and say, there's too much food here. Look at all these fat people. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has their judgments based upon their experience. So, no big. The chair too much? It's not soft enough.
Yeah, it's
I had to get extra cushions for mine too.
You want a cushion?
No, I got one.
No,
You got
I put an extra one down because I lost some weight and now my butt hurts.
Wow. But good for you for losing weight. Thank you so much for letting us be here.
Oh,
Really, all of you.
I'm glad you came.
We're thrilled that we came.
Oh,
Thank you
good.
so much. I've got a tired guy. That's big of me.
Oh, you,
Very interesting and terrific. Thank you, Indigo, for telling us about everything.
You're leaving? You don't want to stay for we're just going to sit quietly for a few minutes?
it's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You see, I accept it as it is. Now Indigo wants to be different.
Yeah, she knows that, that's okay. Thank you. It's lovely.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
This Shakti is putting her to sleep.
Which one?
But
You're terrific. here both times. My God, you mentioned that we would need to come apart, but
Oh,
we're
really?
originally from New York. I mean, originally from France to New York to DC. Nice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Thanks for coming.
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sure. Sweet. You have any questions? You don't have to.
Just listening. Questions. I don't know the answers.
Well, what's the best thing that all of us can do individually to benefit sort of the greater good when there's all these horrible things going on that you just mentioned, and the fires in the Amazon and all the things people are focusing on? It almost seems like people focusing on it sometimes makes it worse. Of course, social media and all that doesn't help because people get addicted to it, and then it like is all they think about. But what can we do individually to each work to benefit, to let that grow more and help what's going on now?
I think if you can bring more peace to yourself, then that has an effect on others as well. So what I would recommend is the same thing I gave to someone recently. When you hear these things and when you see these things on the news, just keep saying and thinking, this is God, this is God, this is God, this is God. You see? This too is God. Everything is.
Even Trump.
Even Trump. You see? And so just continue to see things in a way that brings peace to what you see and brings peace to you. Because right now, you see things and it doesn't bring peace to you, and it makes you feel anxious, and it makes you feel worried, and it makes you feel afraid, and it makes you feel whatever. Okay? But if you know that this is all in the hands of God, it somehow makes it okay. You see? Maybe certain things need to happen that won't be good in the short run, but in the long run, it'll help the whole planet. You see? Maybe it won't be in a way that people hope it will be, but ultimately it still will be. You know, the dinosaurs were eliminated because of an asteroid that at the time seemed like the Earth was destroyed. But it came back brilliantly, you see, with a lot less pesky dinosaurs. You know? That problem is solved. Then you see, 60 million years later, another problem might need to be solved. If you look at the planet, these humans are a bit of a problem. Anyhow, everything's fine. It has to be. How else could things be than the way that they are? Really. This is not in your hands. If it was in your hands, you would have done it differently. This is in God's hands. And that wisdom cannot be diminished and cannot be really questioned by you. You see? Your point of view is just your point of view. You're one of billions and billions of people with a point of view. Big deal. But God has this planet and all the other planets and all the stars and everything in the universe to consider. So bring your sense, get your peace, feel the equanimity in everything, and that will have its effect on everybody. The cashier at the store, everybody will feel that peace coming through, and they will feel more peace because you feel more peace. You know, when people get angry, then other people get angry, and then what you have is a bunch of angry people. There's enough of that. Be the oddball and bring peace to yourself, and let that peace bring peace to others in its own way. Does that help? Good.
How do you express that to other people?
How do you express that?
You know, how do you try to tell somebody, or they say, how can I relieve this doubt in my brain? And you feel like you can center yourself and breathe, and you try to take somebody away from their distressful feelings. And the only way I know to express it is try to say, baby, be gentle, tolerant, compassionate, loving, forgiving of yourself. And then that'll exude from you because you're internalizing stuff, but people don't get it. It's like, I try to, and I try to do my best with flip that switch. And I try to relieve other people's pain through that. I've heard it from so many things like kids on the phone too much, or somebody did this, somebody did that. I try to breathe and I discipline myself to breathe. And I count when I breathe.
To what?
I count when I breathe.
Yeah.
Counting sheep when you're a child is to count sheep to go to sleep to distract your mind.
I'll give you an exercise. If you're working with your breath, in between the in-breath and the out-breath, there's a millisecond where there's stillness. And when you breathe in, just before you breathe out, there's that millisecond. And when you breathe out, just before you breathe in, there's that millisecond. In that millisecond, there's no thoughts. Right there is your peace, okay? It's easy to find in your breath. Really, when you're dealing with other people, sometimes the best thing, the thing that brings them the most peace, is simply being heard. You see? You don't have to tell them. You just hear them. You don't have to agree with them. You just listen. Truly listen. And when you listen, what you'll start hearing is their pain. You see? That everybody's living with. They're just expressing it in a particular way. Okay? You just listen. And when people feel like they've been heard, they can breathe a sigh of relief and feel more peace in their lives. So it doesn't have to be like you telling them to bring more peace into their lives. You can simply, from your peaceful place, be willing to receive what is being said and let that just be. And people, they'll find their own way, you see. Some people will never find their way to peace. Others are lucky, and they do. So just simply apply what I told you about the breath, and you will find that peace with you all the time. And when you don't feel it, remember about the breath And you can bring yourself to that sense of stillness that is yours. You see? And other people, they're all doing the best they can. You know, everyone's doing the best they can. Some people might not be up to your specs of what you think is good, but they're doing the best they can. You can't ask for more than that. You see? And if you can approach people like that they're doing the best they can, then you don't come at them with any judgment about doing it better and doing it right and doing it the way you recommend. You see? All of those things are unlikely to have a positive result. So continue on working on yourself and bringing more peace to yourself. And you'll find that bringing peace to others is effortless because it's just you being yourself. You see? Does that help? I'm glad you both got in some questions before we ended. Now what we're going to do here is what we do after each talk. We're going to sit quietly for a short time and see if some of this can actually absorb into you. And you can take it all home with you and nurture as best you can.